Thank you for tuning in to As It Lays. Today's subject is Charlie Sheen. Charlie, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We'll just get started with the questions.
Perfect.
Do you ever have difficulty taking a compliment?
I do have difficulty taking a compliment, but I learned a long time ago that rather than expressing any outward discomfort or making the moment any more awkward than it already is, that the easiest way for me to get to absorb it and to get past it was to just say thank you.
Do you ever talk to inanimate objects?
Wow, yeah, I've always thought if there was a camera on me at home when I was alone and people ever saw the footage, I'd be locked up that day and forever. But yeah, I talk to everything around me, and in great detail. I'm not trying to glean any response or emotional connection from the inanimate object, but I do feel that it sometimes it makes the space feel more comfortable, especially a larger space feel more intimate, if that makes any sense at all.
Is less really more?
Is less really more? I think in certain situations, less can be more. I had a therapist for years. I finally stopped going because there was no cure in sight. And he would always say, no more, say less. That's the whole story.
What's the best thing that's happened to you this week?
Best thing that's happened this week? Well, it's Tuesday. So, as far as I know, everybody I love and care about still love and care about me. I'm pursuing a fantasy I've had for several decades, and foolishly I continue to play the lottery. So the numbers I just checked from my last go at it, I got the first three. And the other three were just in different lines, but on the same card. So I think that's a pretty good thing that's happened this week, because now I know for sure, either tonight or tomorrow night, that it's gonna hit. It's gonna hit. I'm gonna be the guy that wins the frickin' lotto and just piss everybody off, even more than I already have.
Describe your breakthrough moment.
It's interesting because you're not specifying for that to have occurred professionally or personally, or a breakthrough moment from my childhood and early adulthood is when someone finally explained to me that being selfish has nothing to do with being miserly or stingy, but that it literally means taking care of one's own needs and that was also coupled with finally having the courage to start saying no and offer it as a complete response, and living inside the fear of the unknown, having never said no to anybody, and finally enacting that, and harnessing the power of, I guess, being selfish for the right reasons.
Which emoji do you use the most?
That's a great question. I really like the African American fist bump, and I occasionally use two with the big red exclamation point between them. I also like the disco dancing guy in the purple suit. That's to like tell someone everything's going well. But I don't usually respond just with an emoji. I think it's lazy. I think it's dismissive. I don't text and drive ever. So I use emojis to punctuate the end of something I've written. I don't use them in the middle of any of the text itself, any of the words. I always save them for the end. But recently I've been just scrolling towards the very end and finding the ones that I've never been familiar with at all. And there's a few choice ones in there. And I recently discovered the options holding down the blue arrow to give you confetti and lasers and balloons and all kinds of cool shit. So, but yeah, I think I like the fist bump, because I like the fist bump in life. There's so many germs flying around. You're not being rude, but you're also not having to Purell every 5 seconds, you know?
Which of the 7 deadly sins are you most guilty of?
Wow. I would have to say it used to be greed, but now it's shifted towards envy. I'm hoping those are 2 of the 7. Did I totally shit the bed on that one? Yes, that would be the one.
When did you last make a new best friend?
Wow. It's really interesting that you would ask that, because just recently I got into it with a guy in a coffee shop who just assumed from the second I walked in that I was there for him, and nothing about what I was doing mattered, that the universe just put us on this cosmic collision course for his benefit, and I got a little, I was cool at first, and then he didn't get the hint, and I finally said to him, my buddy, my new motto is no new best friends. That happened last week. I haven't made a new best friend since 1999. There's no time, especially with 5 kids.
When Meatloaf proclaimed, "I'd do anything for love, but I won't do that," what do you think he wouldn't do?
Maybe butt sex. I don't know. Probably have to cut that out. Maybe kill himself. Do anything for love, but I won't kill myself. I don't know. It could be connected to a list of things he won't do. You know, I don't go to weddings anymore because I don't support it either as a participant or as an attendee. You know, I won't go to a farmer's market if there's a playoff game taking place in any sport. Covered a lot there. Totally off the trail.
Is it harder to work with children or animals?
It's harder to work with children because with an animal, the ones they bring in are so trained and so food hypnotized that they'll do anything knowing there's a reward system involved. With a child, you can't put them in a crate at lunch, and you can't hold candy off camera to get a reaction. So children, I think, but I have had terrific experiences working with children.
Have you ever been robbed or mugged?
I've never been mugged, but I lied about getting mugged. Years ago, I was doing Letterman, and I wanted to have a cool story to open my segment with, and I told them as I was jumping into a cab, somebody stole my watch. It was just a lame mugging story. Didn't involve a weapon or anything. And then years later, I told them that was a lie on the air. I have been robbed. I was robbed the first time with my family in Italy when I was 9 years old on location with my dad. And while we were out exploring the ruins, somebody broke in and stole everything that we were traveling with. And we didn't have much back then. And then I was robbed twice, I think in '07 and again in '09. The same people stole my car from my driveway and pushed it off a freaking cliff. Just to this day, I don't know who was involved or why it happened. And then when I was in London about 4 years ago, there was a gang of criminals monitoring people's social media. And if you'd advertise you were out of the country, they targeted your house, and I was one of those guys. And yeah, they it wasn't the value of the stuff they took. It was the sentimental connection that really irked me. So yeah, a few times.
Is there a recent fashion trend that's sparked your interest?
I mean, you see how I showed up, clothes I brought. I don't have any connection to fashion. I don't, there's, when you asked, sparked my interest, perhaps, am I drawn to that? No, the one that I'm baffled by and encounter rampantly is the skinny jeans craze. I just forget getting into them. I don't know how anybody gets out of them without help. And when your clothes present potential danger, physical injury, I think it's time to right the ship,
Have you ever kept a journal?
I've never kept a journal. I've never kept a journal. I always imagined the absolute peril, the horrors that would result from it being uncovered or discovered one day. Not that it's filled with a bunch of crazy, bizarre shit, or would be, but I'm blessed with a pretty good memory, so I've kept the journal up here and just not in a physical state. But I've often wondered when, people that do, when they really have time for that. I mean, that's a real commitment. So I've not kept a journal, and I don't plan on changing that.
What's the secret to getting the party started?
The secret to getting the party started. I threw some pretty interesting parties back in the day, and I used to do a thing called a Percodan sandwich, but that would take a long time to explain. It doesn't involve any bread or condiments. I think the secret to getting the party started is celebrating for the right reason, and having the right mix of balance of folks, of people involved.
Is there a scent that reminds you of home?
There is. There is. It's a plant that was always in my parents' backyard, but I don't know the name of it. It had a kind of a licorice vibe going on about it, and that sort of blended with my dad's pretty inexpensive cologne, and mom's organic cooking, my childhood. Yeah, it was kind of a mashup of those few, and I didn't matter where I was always downwind from it.
Who would you choose to eulogize you?
This is going to come off as radically narcissistic. If I knew I was going, if I had some, something, for some reason, I knew the end was coming, I'd probably just put myself on video and just leave a note at the funeral, hit play.
What book has had the greatest impact on your life?
Not the most unique example, but Catcher in the Rye, because of when I read it and what was going on, and the themes and the imagery and the world we were living in at the time, and just there was finally a voice that was mine. There was finally a voice that someone I could identify with. There was someone else out there, even though it was a fictional moment. I finally felt like I wasn't alone up here, listening to Holden. That one really, and I've never reread it because I don't want to uncover anything. I don't want to change any of those feelings about how it originally presented itself.
Chocolate fountain or cheese fondue?
I'm gonna go with cheese fondue. I'm not a big chocolate guy, and there's a lot more things that appeal to me that I would dip in a cheese fondue than in a chocolate fountain. I mean, you could dip anything. I mean, you could put your hand into a cheese fondue.
Have you ever suffered from a recurring nightmare?
I have, yeah. I do believe it was the direct result of trying to get off of a drug called ecstasy. The kids call it Molly. Yeah, and I only did it for 2 months. I never did it again. But I did it every day, and a lot of it. And then when I stopped, I had this insane week or 10-day long experience with sleep paralysis, nightmare. Where it was that moment where you're still dreaming, but it feels like you're wide awake in that crystalline reality, and the Grim Reaper was above my bed, smashing the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments over my face. And that happened night after night after night. And for an atheist, that was a trip. That was a trip. Got me off the X.
What do you want the world to know about Charlie Sheen?
Well, it's people are going to think or believe whatever they choose to. I find these days that I'm altering people's perception of me one person at a time, and it just comes through just man on the street interaction, and the one thing I hear a lot is, "Wow, you're not at all how I assumed you would be." But I would like to be known more as a decent and compassionate human being. A lot more than anything professionally. I think we've lost sight of as a society, as a culture, of people aren't what they do. That's another part of it, Yeah, I would want people to spread the word to those that never met the man that yeah, he was badass.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching. Thank you, Charlie.